Hey everyone, this video is brought to you by my own merch store because I don't have any sponsors and I need to pay the bills, baby. So check out kanemusic.net/merch if you want to get yourself some Kane merchandise and support the channel. I never had any interest in the Resident Evil franchise. I was always aware of it, but for some reason it just didn't catch my attention. But since it's generally regarded as a really good franchise by many people, I thought I'd at least take a gander at the games and see if it's something that I'd be interested in. So I downloaded the demos for Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil Revelations on my Xbox 360 way back in the day. Resident Evil 6 was more action-oriented, while Resident Evil Revelations was more horror-oriented, and both of the games were in third person. After playing the games, I thought, yeah, this seems like something I can get into. Particularly Revelations, because it had the mixture of shooting and horror that I was kind of expecting from the franchise. Many years later, I had a classmate from college build a PC for me, and he happened to have a hard drive that had a bunch of games on it, and he let me borrow it. So I downloaded all the files, and I noticed that one of them was a copy of Resident Evil 7. I ended up confusing Resident Evil 7 for Resident Evil 6, so I thought, Resident Evil 7? Yeah, I played that demo on the Xbox. And the funny thing is, I was confusing Resident Evil 6 for Revelations, so I thought I was going to be playing Revelations. So the people who have played Resident Evil 7 before can imagine my confusion when I found that the game was in first person and my surprise at some of the events that happened during the intro sequence. Why is the game in first person? Who's that creepy person that I just saw? Why is there foreboding omens made out of severed cow parts? Why did the door close by itself? Why is there a dead crow in the microwave? What's happening to that guy?
Hello there.
Eventually, I realized that I wasn't playing the game that I thought I was playing, which meant that I was going into this game completely blind. I didn't know how much action there was going to be, how much horror there was going to be, what the game mechanics were like, if it was going to have survival aspects or not, if there were going to be puzzles or not. This had a huge impact on my experience playing this game and my opinions of it. And I ended up kind of falling in love with the game. What I found was Resident Evil 7 is a first-person horror survival shooter with a lot of puzzle elements in a somewhat open world. You play as Ethan, an average guy who received a message from his missing girlfriend Mia with the address of her current location. The address leads you to the house of the Baker family, where the majority of the game takes place. The Baker family have all been infected with some kind of virus and have turned into psychotic cannibal killers. There's also these zombie-like creatures called molded roaming around. First, let's get into the horror aspects of the game in detail. The environment designers paid great attention to detail to make all the locations around the house look adequately spooky. The intro sequence you got a little glimpse of is a great example. The house looks abandoned and dilapidated, and there's bugs and mold growing everywhere. The part of the house that is occupied isn't in disrepair, but it still looks dark and messy. Then you have the basement, which is all sorts of foreboding. I really did not want to go in there. There are certain sections of the house that are covered in a black mold, and the molded can just take shape from these masses of black goo, so going into any rooms that are full of the stuff is especially nerve-wracking. The molded themselves are really intimidating too. Overall, you have a sense of dread while exploring the house because you never know what could be around the corner or past the door to the next room, and the lifelike graphics makes it feel like you're watching a horror movie or like you're actually there. The voice actors did a great job in bringing the undead family to life, no pun intended, and hearing their voices as they walked by your hiding spot was freaking terrifying.
As you can see, the family is only part of a gift. Which in a word means, you're fucked!
There's VHS tapes placed around the house. Once you find them, you can take it to a VCR and play through the events through the eyes of whoever recorded the tape. They're not necessary to beat the game, but some of them give you vital information that will help you during your first playthrough. They absolutely nailed the creepy horror movie VHS vibe, which makes playing these tapes really unnerving.
I need to hide.
Why are you putting me through this? What have I done to deserve this except open my home and feed you?
The game doesn't rely on jump scares to make the game scary, but they are used sometimes, and boy are they good at putting jump scares when you least expect them. The game is a bit on the difficult side. I was playing on medium difficulty during my first playthrough and I was struggling. I was always low on supplies and I knew that I could die quickly if I wasn't careful, but that just added to the horror and oppressiveness of the game, and the difficulty never felt unfair. Even though I didn't ever feel well equipped to go into places that presented certain danger, I knew it was possible to survive if I played my cards right. Another thing that unexpectedly enhanced the horror and mystery is all the puzzles in the game. To progress or to find helpful items, you often need to solve cryptic puzzles. For example, you need to find keys hidden in obscure places, you have to place objects in front of light sources to create a shadow of the correct shape onto some paintings to open doorways, and you have to figure out where items are hidden based on pictures that give only few clues. Some of them are hard to solve because it's hard to think of the solution, but others are hard to solve because the key you need could be absolutely anywhere and you need to avoid enemies while searching the house top to bottom. The payoff of figuring out a puzzle or finding the key for a door and then running all the way back to open it is enormous. I do have to say that some of the puzzles are too cryptic or have weird nuances with the way that they need to be solved. It might be because I've never been good at solving puzzles, but I had to look up walkthroughs to be able to complete certain sections of the game. The level design is really interesting. The locations you explore aren't really that big, at least in comparison to levels in other video games, but it feels a lot bigger than it is. Part of that is because Ethan runs with the speed of an asthmatic, overweight senior citizen, but there are other reasons. One of them being all the danger involved in exploring the environment. The presence of just one molded could make going into a room or walking down a hallway a huge task. The level designers also got a huge amount of mileage out of each square foot by using clever design. Discovering how to access a passage that was previously blocked off meant to re-exploring areas that you've already been in, but with new twists. They also included multiple paths to get to certain rooms, so all the rooms in the house feel like they're connected to each other. I don't think I've ever played a game where such a normal and small place like a house felt so huge and treacherous to navigate. Also, you feel very disempowered. Some horror games will give you a lot of firepower to deal with the monsters, but not this one. Your inventory isn't that big, so you can't carry, say, 4 weapons, plus ammo for those weapons, plus healing items, plus the keys that you need to progress. The only weapon that feels powerful and can kill enemies with one shot is the shotgun, but you need to be close to the enemies and shoot them in the head to do it. And you can't permanently kill the bakers unless you kill them in a boss fight, so really the only thing you can do is run and hide from them, and their AI can be relentless. There are times when it's a bit wonky.
Bitch, you thought.
I'll be back.
Slip out before dinner was done?
But for the most part, the AI is pretty smart. On the higher difficulties, they can hear your footsteps if you're in the room right next to them and you run too fast. And they tend to search each room one by one to flush you out. So you're going to find yourself running and hiding a lot in this game, but that's where one of the big issues starts cropping up. You see, even though the game can be stingy with supplies, especially on higher difficulties, there are some sections of the game where it seems to expect you to have enough ammo to deal with the enemies, which, as I just established, is not going to be the case most of the time. And the reason why I say that they expect you to have a certain amount of ammo is because they don't really seem to give you any other options other than to kill the enemies. Some of these situations don't really give you the option of running or hiding. I thought that the whole sequence where you have to hide from Jack was training for the rest of the game. So when I came across the first molded in the basement and I didn't have enough ammo to kill him, the first thing I did was run upstairs and hide. I gave it a couple of minutes so that the molded would wander off somewhere that wasn't in the path of where I needed to go. Then I came out of the room and back down into the basement, and what the fuck? The same molded that I saw earlier just spawned in the exact same place as before. So I ran back upstairs and hid. Then I went back into the basement and lo and behold, there was that same fucking molded again. What the fuck is going on here? Weird fucking enemy spawn behavior. That's what. As I played the game, I realized that if you run too far away from the molded or too far from the room where they spawned, the molded will despawn and then respawn when you walk back into that room. So that means no matter what, the molded will always be there in the same place waiting for you until you kill him. And the molded in the basement spawns in a hallway that isn't wide enough for you to run past him. The only directions you can go is either back upstairs or into a hallway where it reaches a dead end. So you can't run past the molded and you can't hide from him. It's almost as if the game just expects you to have the ammo to kill this molded because there's just no other way around it. But I don't have the ammo. There are plenty of examples throughout the game where this happens, and some of them don't even give you the luxury of being able to run out of the room the same way you came from because that's where the molded spawns. There are some instances where you can find strategies to avoid the molded if you're really patient and tenacious. When I was replaying the game, I found that the dead end hallway is slightly wider than the hallway he spawns in, so I let him into that hallway while hugging one of the walls so that he would be hugging that wall as well. And then when I got to the end of the hallway, I switched sides and hugged the other wall that he was the farthest from, and I bolted for the door that I needed to get into, and I closed the door behind me. He came running back, but molded can't open doors, so he just banged on the door for a bit and then despawned. I thought that the lengths that I had to go through to avoid molded in these kinds of scenarios was ridiculous, but at least it's possible. The thing is, the enemy behavior isn't always consistent, so you can't always rely on the same strategies. For example, when I was in a different area and some molded spawned around me, I ran into a room and closed the door and expected them to either wander off or despawn. So I waited, and waited, and waited, and they never left the door. So here I was, trapped in a room where the only exit has several molded waiting to rip me apart, and I have no ammo. Great. And I've noticed the weird spawn behavior applies to Jack too, so that means it could also apply to Marguerite. One time I was running from Jack and I went through a door and his voice trailed off mid-sentence. I got away from him, and after I did some stuff in the house and then went back to those same doors, he was in the exact same spot where he was before, and he finished the sentence he started like 10 or 20 minutes ago, right before he whacked me over the head with a shovel. What the fuck? Was Jack just frozen in the same spot for 10 or 20 minutes after I left that room? Enemy spawn behavior. Say it with me, people. Enemy spawn behavior. What they should have done is made it so that once the enemies spawn, they don't despawn and they roam around the house looking for you. That would have really made the game nerve-wracking. Imagine if every molded you didn't kill was still roaming around the house and they could be anywhere at any time. You wouldn't have the luxury of knowing that they're only going to spawn in specific rooms. You'd need to peek around every corner before proceeding into a room if you knew you left a molded alive. Plus, that would eliminate the weird spawn behavior of the bakers despawning and then respawning in weird places. And there's lots of other things that ticked me off or annoyed me about the game. There's no lean function, something I think is absolutely essential in a game like this. I mean, Amnesia did it, why can't Resident Evil do it? If you find enough antique coins, you can unlock the 44 Magnum, but it's absolutely useless. There's only enough ammo in the whole game to fill the clip once, and I'm not exaggerating. And it takes up 2 inventory slots for some weird reason, so you're better off carrying the shotgun and 20 shells instead of the Magnum and 7 rounds. The controls on closing and opening doors is kind of weird, and there were a lot of times I had trouble closing doors in very crucial moments. Ah, fuck me. Come on, close the door, you fucking idiot. There we go. Oh, shit. Close the door, close the door. Okay. Hello. Oh, shit. Close the door, please. Okay. When you have to fight her, Marguerite's weak spot is in her stomach, something that the game gives you no indication of, and because headshots are more effective against all the other enemies in the game, including Jack, I was shooting her in the head and then wondered why it didn't seem like I was doing any damage at all. Even on easy mode, they don't give you enough ammo for the pistol to be able to survive in the basement, which forces you to go back upstairs and figure out how to get the shotgun, which means dealing with Jack again. If you get into the boss fight with Jack and you don't have enough inventory space to pick up the chainsaw, then you flat out just can't pick up the chainsaw. And good luck going into your inventory to try to drop something in the middle of a fight. And even if you do have enough space, there has to be space in the upper slots for you to be able to equip it, something that you're not going to figure out the first time you get thrown into this fight. There's one section in the game where certain crates are filled with explosives, so you'll get hurt if you try to open them with a knife like usual. The only way to know which ones are normal and which ones are explosive is to look it up on the internet and then memorize their locations, because there's absolutely no way to visually distinguish them, which is pretty stupid. Well, whatever, at least I beat the final boss fight against Jack and I can get the hell out of here with Mia. Oh, our boat got capsized and now I'm playing as Mia and I'm about to go into this abandoned ship where the whole outbreak started. Interesting. Is this going to be the closing sequence where Mia discovers what happened before the credits roll? Huh, well this is a really long closing sequence. Wait, you creepy little girl, don't just leave. Tell me what the fuck is going on here. Well, I guess I need to look around and see if I can find Ethan. telling me there's still more to this game after that huge climactic boss battle? And now you're going to throw me into this scary ass derelict ship and make me lose all the equipment that I spent the whole game working to acquire? That's bullshit. It makes me feel super disempowered all over again. It makes the game feel really scary again, but it's still bullshit. And I have to play through a flashback where I have a different loadout, and then I go back to the present time and continue where I left off with the loadout that I had before? That's just confusing. Okay, whatever, flashback's over. Let's find Ethan and get out of this godforsaken ship. Alright, I made it. I'm playing as Ethan again, and oh, now they give me all my stuff back. Yeah, thanks. What the hell is this? I have to go through this huge fucking salt mine now? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the game is getting boring, it just feels like this is taking way too long. This game could have ended ages ago and it still would have felt really satisfactory, but now I just feel like they're trying to drag this out as much as they can. Okay, so this is the final boss. Finally, I beat the game. Phew. I think this game was longer than it needed to be and there were some things that I didn't like, but this game gave me an experience like no other. It was an emotional roller coaster the whole way through. I would highly recommend Resident Evil 7 to any horror game enthusiast, and I'm now very interested in trying out the other games in the franchise. I know it might have sounded like I was complaining more than anything in this video, but it's really hard to describe in detail all the things that were done right with this game. You really do just need to play it for yourself and see why I thought this game was such an experience. Well, that's going to be it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to show support, and visit my website and or my Patreon.
Damn, who the hell's a motherfucker down the street? Oh shit, that's me, and I'm about to make like my bitch. They know what's stopping this one-man war machine. Two in the head, one in the chest, fucking clean. Top tier badass, sensing to the ass,